A couple of years ago, I was asked to audition for a show where I had to learn 125 bass lines in 48 hours. What made it a whole lot worse was when I was sent the set list, I only knew or had heard of maybe 25 out of the 125 bass lines. It was a pretty stressful 48 hours to say the least, but halfway through I discovered this system that allowed me to learn songs and bass lines a lot faster. So in this video, I'm going to break down this system into a 5-part framework you can follow to learn songs a lot faster. So whether you're learning songs to play with your local band or you're just learning songs at home for fun, I think this video is going to be very helpful for you. I also have a more advanced, kind of weird bonus tip that I really want to share with you at the end of this video, so definitely stay tuned for that. The reason why I had to learn these songs in such a short time frame was because it was a last minute call and the original bass player had to drop out a few days before the first rehearsal. To be fair, I probably got the call maybe 4 or 5 days before the audition and rehearsal, but as I was on the road doing different shows and gigs, I didn't have time to pick up my bass and learn them. So I listened to the songs in the car for maybe 2 or 3 days before I could actually sit down with my bass, and that was about 48 hours before the rehearsal. And yes, I did manage to learn all the songs, but something went horribly wrong when I turned up to the audition and rehearsal. I took my bass out the case. But I'll tell you more about that later. For now, let's just dive into this 5-part framework. As an example for this video, let's take the Bryan Adams Summer of '69 song, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with or have heard before. But let's say that you've never heard this song and you need to learn it for an upcoming gig. Well, the first thing you need to do is just simply listen to the song, but before you sit down to listen to the song, grab a pen and paper, or if you're more fancy, you can grab an iPad. But on that piece of paper, write the title of the song and the artist at the top of the page. It's not necessary to write the artist's name, but from experience, I think it helps because sometimes the band leader may count in the tune and just call out Bryan Adams. And if Summer of '69 is the only Bryan Adams tune in the set, you may be expected to know that. But there's really another reason. I'm not sure if you can relate to this, but you know when you're on the gig and you look down at the song title on the set list and your mind goes completely blank and you just can't remember how the song goes. Well, to help prevent this, I found if you have the song title and the artist, it helps me recognize the tune a lot faster from a memory point of view. So after you've got the song and title and the artist written down on a piece of paper, the 2 most important things I'll be listening for the first time I listen to the song is number 1, the key of the song. If you don't know the key of the song, when you come to learn the chord progression and bass line, you'll have no context and you won't be able to make sense of the harmony. The second most important thing I'll be listening for is the form. This is just simply the structure of the song. If you know the form, it makes memorizing songs 100 times easier. So let's look at part 1 of this 5-part framework. I have a full video on this channel which explains exactly how to figure out the key of a song. So to quickly summarize that video, you want to play the song and hum the first pitch that comes into your head. 8 times out of 10, this will usually be the key of the song, but if you're incorrect, then the key of the song will probably be a perfect 4th or a perfect 5th interval away from the pitch that you're humming. The skill of identifying the key of a song quickly will develop over time, but if you'd like a more in-depth version of what I've just explained, I'll give you a link to the video I mentioned at the end of this lesson. So once you've figured out the Summer of '69 is in the key of D major, I would write that on top of the piece of paper, and then we can move on to part 2. Part 2 is where I'll listen through the entire song and write out the form. So here you can see me listening to the Summer of '69 and writing out the structure of the song. Now in this song, the bass doesn't actually come in until the pre-chorus, so I'd write that in on the chart that we're creating. I would also write what's going on in the song, even if I'm not playing. So the intro, for example, is just guitar, so I'd write guitar intro. I didn't used to do this, but when you have 40 to 100 songs to learn, it's very easy to forget how a song starts or what's going on in the song. So writing little tips for myself or even writing lyrics can definitely be helpful. You'll also see that I'm using repeat markings to save space and make things easier to read. Part 3 is harmony. Once you've got the key and form, now let's talk about the harmony and notes. Now the Summer of '69 is actually not in standard tuning. If you're going to play it on a 4-string bass, you'd actually play it a tone down, or you would detune a tone down. So you'd actually detune the whole bass, so you have, instead of an E string, it's a D, then you have G, then you have C, then you have F. Obviously if you have a 5-string you can just be in standard tuning. But to make things simple, I'm just going to do it in standard tuning for now. We're just going to be using the basic number system, because by using the number system we can then easily transpose what we're writing down into different keys, which is actually quite common, especially if a male is singing a song that was originally recorded by a female. They may want to transpose the song down so he can actually sing it. If you're new to the number system, write out the parent scale of the key you're in on another piece of paper. Now the parent scale just means a scale from the key of the song. So for example, the Summer of '69 is in D major, so you can write out all 7 notes of the D major scale. So now listen to the Summer of '69 and try to identify the root note of the chord. Some songs are trickier than others, but this one should be fine as the bass player is mainly playing root notes. So listen to the song and figure out which chord is being played. And generally most Western music, rock, pop, blues and country songs are diatonic to the key of the song, which just means that the song will be using one of these 7 notes or 7 chords unless it modulates to another key, which this song actually does in the bridge. So for the bridge, I'll write the new key, which is now the key of F major. So now I'm using the F major as my parent scale just for the bridge. So for example, in the pre-chorus, we have the 6th chord as a B is the 6th note in the D major scale. So 6th chord. And then we have a 5 chord, which is an A. Then we have the 1 chord. And then the 4 chord, which is a G. So as an example for the pre-chorus, I'd write out the numbers 6, 5, 1, 4 using Roman numerals. And here's a quick tip when writing the number system with Roman numerals. If the chord is minor, like the 6th chord, you would write a lowercase Roman numeral. And if the chord is major, like the 1 chord, you would write an uppercase Roman numeral. And this is why I prefer using Roman numerals instead of using the numbers 6, 5, 1, 4. Because when you just have the numbers, you can't differentiate minor chords from major chords, as there's no such thing as a lowercase 6 or an uppercase 6. Now you should have the structure of the song, the key and the chord progression using the number system. So now we can move on to part 4, where we're going to talk about groove. When it comes to learning the groove, I like to identify what's called the skeleton groove. A skeleton groove is kind of like a core rhythm that the bass part is created from. For example, let's take a different song, Stand By Me by Benny King. The skeleton groove would be... So if you take the notes away, you have this rhythm. That is the core rhythm or skeleton groove of Stand By Me. By the way, the reason why I'm clapping is because I've found clapping to be the most effective way of internalizing rhythms. I know you may feel it kind of looks silly and you may want to rush to play the rhythm on bass, but the reason why I recommend clapping first is because there are so many things to think about when playing that rhythm or actually playing the notes on bass. When you're playing the notes on bass, you're thinking about so many things: the tone, the sound, where to put the left hand, where to play in the right hand, am I playing the notes correctly, are my length of notes correct? Compared to clapping, when you just have to focus on moving your hands together at the right time. So clap the rhythm first before playing it on bass, and let's go back to Summer of '69. So I'd write out the skeleton groove for the different sections. Sometimes the groove is the same throughout the whole song, like Stand By Me, but for this one, Summer of '69, the groove changes slightly section by section. The chorus and verse is just a standard 8th note rock groove. Now I can either write driving 8th note rock on the piece of paper, or I can write out the rhythm above the stave like this. And then the pre-chorus and bridge have this kind of groove. So I would write that in the bridge and in the pre-chorus section on top of the music. And then the breakdown is just held notes. So I could also write that rhythm on that particular section of the music, and then I have the entire song written out with all the different skeleton grooves. Now, if you're not sure how to transcribe rhythms and write them out, I do have a whole system on how I transcribe rhythms and put them into notation like this, how you can see on the screen. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to share this system with you on this channel in a future video. If you do everything up to part 4, that should be good for most musical situations. So part 5 is when you want to dive a bit deeper into the real fine details of the bass part. Now, when it comes to transcribing the bass part, it's important to note that there are many different ways of transcribing something. So to make this fun, I'm going to split up the different ways of transcribing into the 4 levels we have inside the Bass Mastermind. Bass Rookie, level 1, Bass Warrior, level 2, Bass Wizard, level 3, and the Bass Master, level 4. If you haven't heard about the Bass Mastermind, I'll leave a link below this video where you can fill out an application to join. But essentially, if you want more support, accountability, and help with your bass playing, this is the best way that I can actually help you. So there'll be a link below this video if you want to study with me, and it's completely free to apply. So level 1, the Bass Rookie stage, is when you're just jamming along to the song and you know the basic bass part. This is perfect if you're just learning the bass line for fun, at home, or for a local jam session. Level 2, the Bass Warrior, is where you've now internalized the form and learnt the important parts of the bass line, and maybe there's a feature or fill that you need to play. This would probably be good for most wedding bands or local cover gigs. Level 3, the Bass Wizard, is where you have learnt the song for a show where it has to be played pretty much note for note. Level 4, Bass Master, is where you're writing out everything note for note, all the subtleties of the bass part, including ghost notes, hammer-ons, and where the bass player is placing the beat. This takes a lot of time, so I wouldn't do this for every bass line I come across, but this is just great if you really want to get inside the bass player's head and really understand exactly what they're playing and how they're playing it. I actually did this with an Anthony Jackson bass line I transcribed a few years ago, and I posted it on this YouTube channel. If I'm completely honest, depending on the gig and situation, I would generally learn a song around level 2 or level 3, as this gives you enough information to do a great performance, but not too much information that you'll be up all night learning songs, especially if you have, say, 40 to 100 songs to learn. So just ask yourself the question, what situation are you learning this song for? If you're learning the song just to jam along at home, knowing the basic bass line is probably okay. If you're learning the song to play in a cover band or a show, you're probably going to want to internalize the form a lot more. And talking about internalizing the form, here's my more advanced kind of weird bonus tip that I promised from earlier. If I'm short on time, or even if I just want to feel more prepared for a gig, I will listen to the songs in the car and play through the tunes, singing the bass part while miming in my left hand. It'd be like this. So if I was learning Stand By Me, I would go that was the steering wheel, by the way. But this exercise does 2 things. Number 1, by singing the bass line, you're actually improving your ear. This is great ear training because you have to match the pitch you're singing to your imaginary fretboard. And number 2 is imagining the fretboard in your head is great for fretboard memorization. So you can start visualizing the fretboard without having to look down all the time. And number 3 is it solidifies the form in your head. And what happens with me when I do this exercise is when I close my eyes, I can start seeing the form and structure of the tune in my head. Obviously, I don't recommend closing your eyes when you're driving, but when I'm short on time, I will definitely whip out my imaginary bass guitar and listen to the tunes if I'm doing a long car journey or if I'm on a train or a bus. And I'm so glad I did this exercise when I was driving to this audition where I had to learn 125 bass lines for this show. Remember how I said something went really wrong when I turned up to the audition? Well, even though I spent the last 48 hours learning these songs, and I even stayed up the night before to prepare for this one rehearsal, I took the bass out of the case and I realized that I'd left all my notes and charts at home. So I had to do the whole rehearsal from memory. And actually it didn't go as bad as I thought, but it was a bit of a shock when I took my bass out of the case. If you want a step-by-step process on how to find the key of a song, click this video here. And this is super important because finding the key is part 1 of this 5-part framework that I've shown you today. And I also mentioned an Anthony Jackson transcription that I did with tab and notation. So if you want to check that video out, you can click here. And if you want to study with me, the link to apply is below this video. It's completely free. Other than that, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next video.